Women need to eat differently when they hit their 40s. Here's why, and what to do. If you're a woman who's in her mid-40s, you've probably witnessed a number of fad diets and nutritional holy grails over the past few decades. Now that you're just a little bit older and wiser, you've likely settled into a pattern of eating that works for you and makes you feel energized and nourished, at least most of the time. But you may have noticed a few changes to your body in the past few years. For most women, perimenopausal symptoms might have been happening since your mid-30s, said Dr. Stephanie Faubion, Medical Director of the North American Menopause Society and Director of Mayo Clinic Center for Women's Health. The typical age to begin menopause is 45. There are changes ahead, no doubt, but you can help yourself ease into this next phase of life by making some smart nutritional choices to help yourself age as gracefully as possible. You may already have been noticing weight gain, or a redistribution of weight, with more settling around your belly area, Faubion noted. We lose muscle mass by 1% a year after age 50, and most adults gain about 1.5 pounds each year progressively through middle age, Faubion said. But she said weight gain, while challenging, isn't inevitable. You can't exercise it all off, so you need to pay attention to what you're eating, she said. You don't have to deprive yourself, though, and you can have a beautiful, healthy diet that's filled with fruits and vegetables. Here's your window of opportunity to eat more nitrate-rich veggies. Marian Jacobson is a registered dietitian and midlife health expert who noted that many women over age 45 are at an increased risk for nutrient deficiencies, even when they eat the way they always have. She said this might be the best possible moment to switch things around on your plate. Health experts call the time of life a window of opportunity, she said. That's because the decisions we make at midlife will affect our health in our older years. It's a good time to up your intake of nitrate-rich vegetables such as leafy greens, celery, and beets. These help women increase their nitric oxide levels that decline with both aging and hormonal changes, Jacobson said. In fact, one study showed that 2 salads a day helped increase nitric oxide-related blood flow in midlife women. She also suggested a renewed focus on micronutrients, including magnesium, zinc, choline, omega-3s, iodine, B vitamins, and selenium. Aging and lower estrogen levels affect how much of those micronutrients the body absorbs, she said. Don't go hungry, and don't miss out on protein. One of the biggest nutrition mistakes that I see is women going on extremely low-calorie diets, said Courtney Delpra, a dietitian at the Cleveland Clinic. When your estrogen levels start to dip, as they do in your mid-40s, this also decreases muscle mass. If you respond by skipping meals, that can have a negative effect. Think of your metabolism as a bonfire. If you don't put enough logs on your fire, it'll dwindle. Undereating, chronically, can affect how you metabolize your foods, so it's key to get enough calories with the right macronutrients. Delpro recommended including enough protein throughout the day. The biggest key is getting 20 to 30 grams of protein with each meal. You can easily take in that amount with a focus on lean proteins, such as 4 ounces of chicken or turkey, 3 ounces of fish, a cup of beans or a handful of nuts or seeds. When it comes to higher fat meats, such as red meat, the American Heart Association recommends just 1 to 2 servings per week, she said. Eat more fiber to manage cholesterol. As great as protein can be, it's just one part of your nutritional mix, so the experts emphasized the importance of striving for balance. A common mistake women make is spending too much time focusing on one aspect of nutrition, said Jennifer Salib-Hubber, a registered dietitian and licensed naturopathic doctor whose Instagram handle is @menopause.nutritionist. Some will overemphasize high-protein eating, and some others will become overly focused on limiting carbohydrates to the point that they aren't getting enough fiber. That's a mistake, because fiber can be key in helping you stay healthier. Giving fiber intake a bump can help manage the 10% increase in cholesterol levels that most women often see in menopause, along with an increased risk of insulin resistance and diabetes, she added. The American Academy of Family Physicians also has suggested that women over 40 eat more foods with fiber, like berries, whole grains, and nuts, with a goal of about 25 grams each day. Examples: raspberries have 8 grams of fiber per cup, nuts have 3 grams per ounce, and a cup of cooked oatmeal has 4 grams. Plan on a good enough diet for your health. Women need to find a way to enjoy healthy eating that fits their life, without guilt, Huber concluded. It needs to be flexible and forgiving, and not based on rules designed to control what you can and can't eat. So give yourself permission to lower the bar and make a most of the time good enough your standard, instead of striving for perfection every time. I spent years unsure if I wanted kids. After one devastating incident, I'm finally making peace with my choice. I recently watched a viral video of Chelsea Handler clapping back at conservative commentators Tucker Carlson and Jesse Kelly after they criticized her decision not to have children. In it, she laughs about her successful career, 6 best-selling books and Netflix comedy special, while reveling in the fact that we as women can do whatever we want to do, children or no children. But as I listened to Carlson and Kelly disparage Handler's choice, I wondered if that was true. Sure, she is wealthy and successful beyond anyone's wildest dreams, but she still has to listen to the likes of Kelly comparing her womb to a dried-up tumbleweed blowing down an old western town. I understood once and for all that choosing not to have children, for Handler and for me, meant that for the rest of our lives, we'd have to defend our decision not to fulfill capitalism's antiquated idea of our biological destiny. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Writer Adrienne Rich provided a grave distinction between 2 meanings of motherhood: the potential relationship of any woman to her powers of reproduction and to children on the one hand, and to the institution, which aims at ensuring that that potential and all women shall remain under male control on the other. Patriarchal motherhood is the idea that all women want to be mothers, and that motherhood is how women find their joy and purpose. But what if some of us don't? In the 1990s, I took a high school elective called Parenting and Familial Systems. I don't recall anything about the class except the plastic babies we had to take home for the weekend. This was supposed to prepare us for motherhood and help us understand what to expect when we married our high school sweethearts approximately 2 years after college. To stop it from crying, stick the key in its back, said Mrs. L, demonstrating on a waxy infant I knew was meant to be a boy because of its fuzzy blue honesty. But try to soothe it first, and understand what it needs. We left 8th period that day with our babies in tow, praying we'd got one that wasn't programmed to cry too much. I managed to make it all the way home without a peep from the baby. Lucky me, I thought. The first time my plastic baby cried, I was fooling around with my boyfriend. Shut that thing up, he half laughed, out of breath. I rolled my eyes. I didn't need any kind of maternal instinct to know that yelling at the baby to shut up wouldn't stop its wailing. The baby continued to cry. Now what? My boyfriend said while hovering over me, angry as though we were the actual parents of this fake baby. Was this what it would be like to raise a child? Would the creature cry while whatever man I chose to be its father asked ridiculous questions and offered no help? I don't know, dude, I'm not a mum. I matched his frustration. Good thing, too. Maybe you shouldn't be one. Like ever. It felt as if he had just slapped me. He was only 17, but his words carried the weight of a 100-pound anvil. That was the first time I wondered if I should be a mother. And if I shouldn't, what would that mean for my future? Could I find success and happiness without children? My ambivalence haunted me throughout my 20s and 30s as I waited for an alarm to go off, hoping my biological clock would ring loud enough so I could hear it. I constantly thought, when was I supposed to want a child? And what happened if I never did? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Drunk at a friend's wedding, I jokingly slurred to my husband, Steve, that we should start trying to get pregnant, as I swayed back and forth on the dance floor to some 90s hit. We were 28. Married for 1 year but dating for 9, we'd always said that we'd have children if and when we decided we wanted to. But so far, there was nothing pushing us toward baby making. That night, I decided to test the waters of my marriage by demanding that we conceive. We should have a baby now, I said to Steve, balancing on one heel. Like tonight. Steve stared at me, partially smiling but also worried, unsure if I was serious. When he realized I was, no way was his response. Rage filled my body as he stood there taking long swigs of a Miller Lite. At that moment, I wanted to punch him. We should want kids, right? That's what you're supposed to do when you love someone and build a life with them, isn't it? I was mad at his hesitation even though I had been hesitating too. I wanted him to want a baby with me even if I wasn't so sure that I wanted one myself. Every so often I would mention a baby name out of the blue and Steve would get quiet. His silence infuriated me. The conversation continued like this for years, Steve assuring me that we could have a baby if we really wanted one, and me feeling unsure that it made sense but angry anyway when Steve didn't jump at the chance. About 3 years after that wedding, something shifted for both of us. Perhaps it was because we were more settled into our careers and lives, including a move to New York City, which bought us some time to decide what we wanted. We had a respectable amount in our savings and retirement accounts, and we said, what the hell, let's try. Or maybe we just didn't want to regret anything when sitting alone in a nursing home decades later, with no kids to take care of us or feed us applesauce. So, we decided to just see what happened. There was no real memorable conversation attached to this choice. It almost felt like we were both throwing in the towel. It was simple. All of a sudden, the voice in the back of my head convinced me that I was doing it all wrong. I should definitely want a child, and we needed to start trying now. Once we decided to give the whole kid thing a go, we moved quickly. Should we just let her rip? Steve asked, and we laughed at the idea of planning to have sex. The first night we got into bed, sex felt awkward, robotic. Over the next few months, I worried because nothing happened. Every time I took a pregnancy test, I saw the single blue line staring back at me. Negative. I began to wonder if this was a sign from the universe that maybe we weren't meant to be parents after all. That is, until I finally saw the word pregnant blink on the stick I held between my fingers, and I felt anxiety surge through my body. I took all 3 pregnancy tests in the box at different times. There was the initial test, after a champagne-laced afternoon of hanging with friends. Positive. Then immediately afterward I took it again. In my right hand I held my phone, Googling false positives and coming up with hundreds of message boards telling me they were possible but not likely. The second pregnancy test was positive, too. I called Steve at work. Are you by yourself? I asked, my voice shaking. Before he could answer, I blurted out that I had taken 2 pregnancy tests. One after the other. Both positive. He took a loud, deep breath that echoed in my ear. Was he happy? We need to go to the emergency room. Something isn't right, I said, standing in the doorway of our bathroom 3 weeks later. I don't remember anything after that until I was at the hospital in a paper gown. With a reassuring voice, the doctor said, Sometimes bleeding happens during pregnancy. Everything was all right. I was just overreacting. So, Steve and I took an Uber back across the Queensboro Bridge. A few days later. More bleeding. More doctors. More exams. More ultrasounds. This time, I'd miscarried. After my miscarriage, I no longer felt excited about having a baby. My friends continued to get pregnant, and I would try on the role of mother just for a moment to see how it looked on me. But I couldn't conjure an image of myself as the permanent version. One afternoon, Sarah asked me to babysit when her child, Ellie, was just a few months old, so I made my way to her Brooklyn apartment on that humid June day. I hadn't taken care of a baby in years. Would I remember how to change a diaper? What would I do if she cried? I felt a pang of nervousness wash over me. But 4 floors up in Brooklyn, alone with Ellie as she snoozed peacefully in her swing, I stared at her beautiful, milky skin, her blushed cheeks, her chest moving up and down, and I wondered, did I make the right decision? The dull ache I felt eventually turned into a sharp pang of guilt, shame, and sadness. I was never going to have a baby. It took me 30 seconds to realize I was crying. It took me another 10 seconds to realize I was crying into Ellie's head. And then I was sobbing. I cried for myself and the decisions I had to make. I cried for Jennifer Aniston, Tracy Ellis Ross, Oprah, and all the women who had to make the decision, for whatever reason, not to mother, too. The uncertainty of whether to become a mother is a carousel that never seems to stop. At 40, I'm still constantly told I will change my mind about not wanting children. But more recently, with Handler, other A-list celebs and a gaggle of mom talk influencers speaking out about their decisions not to have children, I've grown more comfortable with my choice. Aniston told Allure last year that she has 2. Now in her 50s, she said she finally has 0 regrets. The women paving the way for all women to choose the life that best suits them are pioneers. They are opting out, pushing back against the prison of the patriarchy. And like any rebellion, those who are entrenched in upholding the power structures, those like Carlson and Kelly, will fight it. Let them fight. I no longer feel the need to defend myself. I no longer feel the need to explain. I no longer feel the need to prove to the haters and the rest of the world that the choices I make for and about my body are valid. Instead, I take Handler's words as a prayer that we as women can do whatever we want to do, children or no children. There's no one path to happiness and fulfillment. Some people may have known the minute they stuck their key in a plastic baby in high school that they wanted to be parents. And others, like me, stared into the doll's shiny face and felt unsure. Do you have a compelling personal story you'd like to see published on HuffPost? Find out what we're looking for here and send us a pitch. Women wearing subway shirts shows how unsafe public transport still is. Every woman knows how daunting it can be to travel whilst you're wearing anything that's slightly revealing. Getting on public transport as a woman can be an experience in itself, but when you're in a short skirt or a low-cut top, it makes the journey feel twice as long. It's for those reasons that women online are showcasing the importance of carrying a subway shirt. It's a shirt that women wear over their outfits whilst on their commute to reduce the chances of being catcalled or harassed by men. In this TikTok video, user @SeriousActress explains the concept. If you're wearing a cute outfit and taking the train, don't forget your subway shirt. It's a slightly more effective way of avoiding creepy shirts on your commute than doing nothing at all, she says. Sadly, these videos resonated with several users, but not for good reason. This makes me so sad, one user writes. Isn't it sad we have to dress down when we are traveling via train bus? Another user says. One added, no matter how much I try to look like a gremlin, at least one man will be tempted to bark at me. The concept, unfortunately, isn't anything new. According to a survey commissioned by UN Women UK, 7 in 10, 71%, women in the UK have experienced some form of sexual harassment in a public space. The most frequent forms of sexual harassment experienced by women aged 18 to 34 on public transport are sexual comments, 27%, intrusive staring, 25%, persistent questioning, 19%, and stalking or being followed, 15%. Although these experiences are terrifying for women, a third of adults don't believe persistent questioning to be sexual harassment and feel the same about catcalling and intrusive staring. When a girl turns a certain age and starts to receive unwarranted attention from men, she learns the unwritten street rules she has to abide by. Wearing a Subway shirt is one rule, but it's not the only one we have to live by. Others include avoiding contact with men, pretending you're on the phone or listening to music, telling a man you have a boyfriend when he asks for your number. The list could go on. Subway shirts shouldn't exist because women should be able to wear what they want without the fear of harassment. But until men can get their act together, Subway shirts will continue to thrive. Older women reflect on what they're supposed to wear as they age. When I look at photos of myself from 20 to 30 years ago, I realize that I had no idea how good I looked. I never thought twice about wearing short skirts and dresses when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s. I'm now in my early 50s. Recently, I tried on some of the things in my closet and deemed them too short, not something a younger me would have ever done. That got me thinking, how short is too short when you're a half-century old or more? Is it different than when I was 22? Should it be different? How else have my style and fashion choices changed as I've aged? I became intrigued by the answers to these questions, if there were answers, and if those answers even mattered, as well as the thoughts, worries, and fears that other women my age have about their fashion and style choices. So I spoke to as many of my peers as I could, and also got insight from a psychologist. The stories and conversations we had were illuminating, validating, and wonderfully insightful. The inner workings of my friends' brains. I've known Natalie Flores, age 49, for about 25 years. We worked together when we were in our 30s and became close friends. Those were the days of short skirts, tank tops and cowboy boots in Austin, Texas. Bare legs and arms were our norm. Though I have since moved to a place much less swampy, Nat still lives that state. Some of her fashion choices have changed, though. I no longer wear shorts because of the way my inner thigh curves, although I have no problem with a short skirt because it hides that inner thigh curve, she told me. She also said she no longer wears cap sleeves because they point to a soft and pale inner arm that she'd rather hide, from both her own reflection and the public. Joan, a 69-year-old cyclist and retired lawyer who requested to keep her surname private, told me that since she passed the 50-year milestone, she no longer wears miniskirts. I stopped because I just didn't feel like showing off that much anymore, didn't feel the need to advertise, as it were, she said. As I got older, no skirts whatsoever. Didn't like stuff flapping around my legs. Besides, if I dropped something or had to climb over something, I didn't want the hassle of a skirt. Both of those things happened in my 40s and 50s. Stephanie Ruxio, a 50-something French woman I met a couple of decades ago in a bistro, had an effortless, sexy style that I myself was never very good at. When we talked, she told me that her style has definitely changed, and that she feels as if she is still undergoing changes, both fashion and otherwise. This, I think, is a state we should all aspire to, perpetually growing and becoming. I mean, are we ever really done? The wonderful thing is now I don't have any pressure or drive to impress, Stephanie said. My fashion and style decisions have gradually become comfortable yet funky, but above all true to myself, instead of hypothetically pleasing the times and/or people. I feel and love my age in the sense that I dress completely in tune with my needs and wants, regardless of exterior inputs. Some of the women I talked to lamented that their skin has begun to sag. Joan told me that despite her good muscle tone and the fact that she is in great shape, the packaging is sagging. Unfortunately, she said, gravity has been around as long as I have. That one breaks my heart. Jeannie Barbotto, a 70-year-old woman who is also active and fit, said something similar. I am more aware of showing skin, wrinkly neck and arms, legs that are increasingly scarred and mottled. But, not infrequently, I do it anyway. A psychologist weighs in. If a lot of your self-esteem is based on your appearance, you're going to have more anxiety as you get older because your appearance changes. And I think this is especially true for women, and Kearney Cook, a licensed psychologist and wellness coach in Ohio, told me. You need to define yourself by the choices you make each day, not what's happened in the past or how culture's perceiving you, she said. These include deciding to be a better person or a better friend, to eat healthy, to move, to experience the arts. Focus on the choices you make to feel good about yourself and your body, she added. You get affected about a lot of things, like who your partner is, what fashion has meant in the past to you, how important people in your life dressed. At the end of the day though, the trick is just finding colors, fabrics and styles that look good on you, that you feel good in, that really express who you are now. A gift to getting older, I think, is that we're more clear about who we are, Kearney Cook said. The freedom of caring less about what you're supposed to wear. Thankfully, as I've gotten older, I care less about what other people think of the way I look. Not that sometimes I still don't worry about how I'm perceived, but ultimately I am better about not giving those kinds of concerns much credence. One person responded to my miniskirt question by saying, "No worries. No fear. I wear what I want." And when it comes to the gaze of others, there's a certain freedom to be found in acknowledging that not everyone is watching you. I look at other women my age and think, nobody cares how we dress anyway, which also gives me a certain amount of carefreeness, Jeannie said. Natalie told me that she'd recently been feeling nostalgic for her college years look and questions whether she's trying too hard to look young. I have been experimenting on adding elements of that look to my choices. And I definitely pause and wonder if it looks forced, if it makes me look like I'm trying to look younger or if I look out of touch with what someone my age is supposed to wear, she said. Many of us spend a good deal of time worrying about how we look and whether we will appear attractive to others. And this, of course, is always tied up in how we choose to dress, as well as our relationships with our own bodies, Kearney Cook said. We also have to teach people how to talk about our bodies, she said. She told me a story about one of her clients who received a clean bill of health from her doctor. The woman was very pleased, but when she told her husband, he asked if the doctor had said anything about her big butt. And this is the best part, Kearney Cook told me. The woman replied, "No, he didn't ask about you." A big part of accepting aging is the maturity that comes along with it. As Stephanie put it, it's a hard-won freedom to disregard how one is perceived by others. And I, for one, am so grateful to all who were pioneers in carving the road to openly expressing oneself unapologetically. When I was younger, I had no idea how good I looked, Joan said. No one does. But then you get older and you look at pictures of yourself when you were young, and you think, geez, I really looked great. I wish I'd appreciated that more and stressed less. Black women are getting tired of wearing wigs. Here's why. Taking pictures, make sure you can't see no lace, that wig secure like the money in a safe. So goes the Chloe x Halle song, Do It. And those lyrics signify just how normalized wig wearing is for black women. Growing up, it was normal to see your mum, aunts, and even grandmas wearing one. But the state of wigs have evolved a lot since they started wearing them. I was 17 when I first ventured into the world of wigs, and these were the days of closures. A closure is your bog-standard wig that usually features clips or an elastic band to ensure it stays in place all day. In fact, they're perfect for everyday use, because they're so easy to put on and take off. Now we also have the frontal wig, which has really taken off in the past couple of years. When Chloe and Halle sing, "Make sure you can't see no lace," they are referring to the lace on a frontal wig. A frontal differs from a closure wig as it's typically glued down to your hairline so it looks more like your own hair. As Martha O explains on the Natural Girl Wigs blog, one way to identify frontals is that they are used to recreate the hairline from ear to ear, while closures are used to recreate the natural parting of the hairline. Frontal wigs have grown in popularity, especially online. But head to TikTok and you'll see more and more black women who are tiring of their wigs, too. This sentiment isn't part of the natural hair movement per se. Many black women still enjoy wearing fake hair, but we want to explore different options. Options such as tape-ins, ponytails, and natural hair extensions. The kind of options that have been available to white women for much longer. This is something that Tendai Moyo and Hugo Agbai, co-founders of Ruka Hair, have also observed. Ruka is a black-owned hair business that aims to provide black women with hair extensions in different textures and formats. As well as selling online, it now has a physical shop in London's Westfield Stratford and also works with a network of co-creators, in its lingo, who test out products. What we've noticed is black women having less attachment to a particular style. We've seen more people experimenting with their own hair in various formats like ponytails and clip-ins, Moyo tells HuffPost UK. She continues, "One of the things a co-creator said in our community interview last year is that, historically, white women can go to a salon and say, 'I want longer hair that looks exactly like mine.' But, historically speaking, black women haven't been able to do that. That more black women are downing their wigs is due to 2CS, she says, compromise, or not wanting to, and choice, the availability of alternatives. 3 years ago, white women were using things like microlinks. This option wasn't a thought for black women then, because it didn't exist in our texture. Agbai also sees the trend for wig wearing waning. I think with wigs, especially with frontals, it was something that you only saw in the theater, or only saw celebrity stylists doing. Then it became extremely accessible and prominent. Now I feel like people are experimenting with other styles, she tells me. Wider choice is certainly a factor, but let's not understate that the maintenance of frontals can be tedious. Wearing a frontal regularly requires a lot of time and effort. You have to glue the wig, which can take ages, then straighten it, apply a lace tint to make the wig look natural. Sure, you get used to it, but it's not fun. As the Ruka website highlights, black women spend 6 times as much as their white counterparts on haircare products and service. But this could be beginning to change. I've seen black women accept the fact that their hair doesn't have to take a ridiculously long time, Moyo says. Especially since frontals are usually done by professionals, if you do it by yourself you're not always doing it correctly, which causes more damage and time needed. I've seen more black women finding styles that are less time-consuming. Agbai agrees and suggests that it's liberating many of us from some long-held habits, in some cases inherited. All of the language we've been socialized to use around our hair has influenced this, she says. We think our hair should take a long time, that it can laborious to do our hair. I'm excited to see that shift and see black women really look for quicker solutions. The phrase "where's the lace" is used all too often in reference to frontal wigs. There's an obsession with making frontals look exactly like the hair on your head when a lot of the time, they just don't. This pressure for wig perfection has made some black women consider other options. This is the case for Akua Ntiamoa, 26, a civil servant from Essex, who says she didn't enjoy wearing wigs as her hair never looked like what she saw online. I felt like I was forcing it. Maybe it's because I saw girls on Instagram wearing them, but when I put a frontal on myself I didn't look like those other girls, she says. Black girls always say, the lace is invisible, but I can see it in real life. She stopped wearing wigs 2 years ago. I was tired of my wigs not looking natural, so I cut my hair. I wore wigs from time to time, but I still didn't look right, so now I just wear my hair out in a pony. She says she also enjoys braids. Moyo and Agbai have received positive feedback about Roka's ponytails, that putting them on doesn't require much work for the wearer. As they tell me, we'd get women saying, "We don't have to put much gel in our, we can just attach the ponytail and go." That is the best thing. While wigs are often seen as a great protective style, wearing them too often can also damage your hair. For Joy Olugboyega, 25, a photographer and director from London, wearing wigs ruined her hairline, so she doesn't. I stopped wearing wigs in 2019. Haven't worn a wig since, she says. My relationship with wigs was pretty much on and off. I hated what it was doing to my hairline, but at the same time appreciated the convenience. And now she's made the break, Olugboyega is reclaiming more than her hair. I realized I looked way better with my natural hair and Afrocentric hairstyles like Fulani braids, faux locks, finesse. Not only do I look better, but I feel better too, like a queen, she says. I just feel more like I'm more myself when it comes to how I present. It's the truest representation of me and where I come from.